It will pop. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today. Sorry about the delay with the time slots, but life gets tricky in the way. I'm Deb and I'm from Together We Mix, and we are talking all things low FODMAP. So for those that may not suffer from fructose or irritable bowel syndrome, because really that's where low FODMAP diet came about, it's really reducing foods that cause inflammatory response, particularly in the digestive system in the gut. And they can be things like sugars that you find, so all types of sugars. Even fibers can be effective as well. And what I'm wanting to show you on this particular cook is how we can create pantry staples, like really ones that you'll use all the time, and why you should be making it yourself, and how a Thermomix is definitely an essential tool when you've got dietary needs. So the first thing that I'm going to show you today is, for those that haven't seen on their cookie dough, it's a recipe which I think is amazing, because if you go into a health food shop or specialty shops, they do sell it in a jar, and it's almond milk powder, where you just basically spoon out the amount so you can make your almond milk on the go. Now, the reason why I like making it myself is particularly I can get activated pesticide-free almonds, but also I'm knowing exactly how many almonds are going into that compared to others, because obviously we don't know if we're not having enough almonds, getting that goodness from it, or too much because we've got a sensitivity and we're just causing inflammation. One of the key things, and a lot of people, even who have been doing low FODMAP for a while, do not understand that it's the things that are added to our packaged almond or plant-based milks that can play havoc with the digestive, particularly with those with fructose sensitivities. So one of those is inulin, and it is found, and they don't even have to label it within the package of if you go out and buy your almond milk. So a lot of people, when they're first starting out on dietary, they're going, great, I can't have cashews, I can have almonds, and they just go out and buy it. But unfortunately, you don't know what sugar or sweeteners they've got added. And then we're looking then at inulin, is a fiber that they use for the emulsification of those plant-based milks. So when we make ours here on the cookie dough, it does a jar full, so it's really good that you make it fresh on the go when you need it, more cost effective. We can, and I really cheap as well, I actually use and I buy good quality almond meal already blanched, and I, instead of getting the almonds, I just use it with the already pre-existing almond meal. But you're wanting to source like somewhere from Honest to Goodness, or somewhere that does organic, so you're ensuring that you're not getting those pesticides, etc. The other ingredient that they use in this is arrowroot, and we know that arrowroot is a starch, because a lot of starches, particularly like corn flour, is not ideal for people with fructose sensitivity. So we can add a bit of that to it, and really that's kind of also not only acting as an agent, but giving some starch, and it will make it more creamier. But the other little sneaky ingredient that I'm adding into this, that's not in the actual recipe, and you can buy from Honest to Goodness, some health food shops have, is MCT powder. And, a lot of people know about MCT oil, good for us. It's a good fatty, oil that's very good. It goes to the brain. It's good for inflammation, etc. But a lot of people don't know that you can get it in the powder form. And the reason I love to use the powdered form is often if you don't use MCT oil on a regular basis, it can go rancid. So at least with the powder, you can keep it in the freezer and use when you need. it also has acacia fibre in it. And the reason we want acacia fibre is because with the inulin, what the inulin and why they put that in the almond milk, which is sensitive to fructose people, it acts as a prebiotic fibre. And because we're removing that, not having the inulin, when using this MCT powder, which has acacia fibre, which is actually found safe for people with fructose sensitivities. Now, you'll also probably wonder why I want to put this in. It's almost like, you know, you're giving it like a superfood, like a little bit of a perk, but also because anything to do with coconut is going to give a creamier sensation. So this is really good when you're wanting it for coffees, etc., or getting that creamy sensation in your plant-based milks. So on this recipe, we'll just go through it. It has sugar. I don't put sugar or any sweetener in it. If you're a person that still struggles, you know that you could always add later. And the reason I don't like, especially at this point, to put any sweetener in whatsoever is because you've got to remember whatever you normally make, bake, or cook with your plant-based milks, it may already have natural sugars, or you might be making a sweet dish that already has your maximum amount of sweetener, whether it's maple syrup or coconut sugar, because they're two things that you can have on a fructose diet, but you've already kind of reached that capacity. So having your milk as a basis, it's a bit like having butter. You know, you buy the unsalted because if you need it salted, it's easier to add later on, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to not have any sweetener in this. Now on this recipe here, it's got you can make 420 grams or 280 grams. I'm just making the 280 grams. Now, most people will know that you can only have a certain amount of almonds per serving. Don't forget, we're going to be only using, like, the most is a tablespoon in a whole litre of water when we mix it up. So you're really not getting that full concentration as to the amount that we're actually putting in this. So I'm just going to do this. And we are going to weigh. First, I should weigh it. I'm not roasting my nuts because they've already been milled and blanched. I'm just going to get a spoon. So we're putting about 250. So it seems quite a lot, but it's going to make you a lot, you know, and you can keep this out or you can stick it in the freezer or fridge. It depends on how frequently you're wanting to make up your milk. Now I don't need to blitz it because we've already got the meal, and I'm going to add the arrowroot flour. So you're just wanting 2 tablespoons of that. You could even go to 1 tablespoon. I personally think it really depends on how regularly you're using it. I think it acts as a good, like, kind of keeping it so it doesn't all clump together as well. I'm putting in the MCT powder, and then I'm going to be putting in a pinch of salt. That's like literally all we're doing. Now, if you wanted to get creative, you could make up different variants of this. You could add some, you know, cinnamon or vanilla in that as well. But I like just making it all plain so that we can just build upon from there. Okay, so now we're going to mill. And that's really just mixing it all together. I should have got a little jar. And mine, because I'd already milled, like I've got the pre-milled, I didn't even have to mix it as much in there. So we're going to just put that all in here. Now mine's a little bit clumped together only because I might have had slightly a little bit of a not fully dried bowl, but that's okay. Okay, so we've got that all there. And then we're going to go out of this recipe. We're going to exit this recipe now because we've made it and you can store this. And now we're going to actually make up our almond milk, and we're going to do it on our manual cooking on here. Let me have a look. Where are we? Okay, so I'm going to just put in probably, for me, a tablespoon and a half is fine. And then I'm going to put in my water. And I'll put about 700 mils or grams. And we can then use our blend mode. So when you're in your modes, you go to blend. And I'm going to do it for a minute. So got my little bowl here. No. Hold on. Got my So that's all blended together. And this is where I always tell people, don't clean out the bowl when you or reuse your bowl, because you've just used milk. So whatever you're going to use milk in, then, you know, don't worry about cleaning it out until you go into that. I've just got a nut bag there, and you probably can see it's quite frothy at the moment. Okay. Now, my little trick is I kind of put it in the bowl and I scoop it up. And obviously, I don't know how many people make their own milk, where you squeeze it through the nut bag. And don't throw out your pulp. You know, stick it in your muffins, stick it in your cakes. You could do that as well. Now, with our nice creamy milk, I'm going to just put this up here, tip it into here. Might get got a little funnel. I thought I'd be really smart, but see my nice. Now I've got quite a bit left still in here, but look at how nice and creamy that milk is. And it's going to be like quick and easy to do. Okay, I'm just going to wash my hand. Now, once we've done that, you're thinking, what can we do with this? And this is where we come to pantry staples. A lot of people with fructose and IBS are dairy intolerant. And obviously, when you're on the low FODMAP, you go dairy free. So there's an amazing recipe. I use this on a weekly basis vegan butter recipe you can find on Cookie Dough. What I love, it doesn't use cashews. So you got to think about a lot of plant-based creams and butters and cheeses. They all are predominantly using cashews, which you are not allowed to have on a low FODMAP diet. So this particular recipe is utilizing almonds. Now, it's quite interesting that we're using two types of ways that we've got our almonds, and we're using two different oils. And these two oils are safe to use on a low FODMAP diet. We're going to be using some coconut oil and olive oil in this as well. So to start off with, it's asking us again to use blanch almonds. So if you're not part of a local co-op in your area, I would definitely go on Facebook and see if there is one, because it is so much more affordable to buy your pantry staples, especially with dietary needs, through a local co-op. So you split half a kilo, and because they're buying it in bulk, it works out a different per kilo per gram cost. So all we're needing, and it's not a huge amount, which is good because we don't want lots, is 30 grams. So that ticks itself off on the new TM7. If you haven't seen it, if you put the right amount, it ticks it off for you and you can go to the next. We don't need to blitz that. We'll scrape that down. And now we're going to add our almond milk. So I'm going to use what I've got left here. And on the new TM7, it automatically tears every time for you. So you don't need to press the tear button. Right, so we got that. And another thing, and this is a safe product, is and very handy, especially if you're dairy free, is your nutritional yeast flakes. Now, it does say to put a tablespoon in there. It depends on how strong you want the taste, because like if you think about it, this would be equivalent to almost, because it gives a saltiness to it, like as if you got using salted butter. So if you're wanting unsalted, I would put less, and maybe if you're wanting to look like it looks like butter, put a pinch of turmeric in, which is going to be good for inflammation anyway and supportive, but it will help give that yellow color too. Okay. We put in our salt and some apple cider vinegar. So I'm going very minimal on the salt because, like I said, I like it to be versatile, that I'm using in my baking for and I would prefer to add salt later. Add a quarter of a teaspoon of apple cider. And what's really good is we've got that MCT powder in as well. So it's going to give that really creaminess to our vegan butter. And I'm going to blend that and get a container. Okay. Now, I'm just finding my spatula. Found it. Okay, so you can already see, if I bring this closer, how much it is getting that pale consistency. And now we're going to add olive oil. So these are staples that you would predominantly have in your house. So I love the fact that we're not using specialty ingredients. We're using things that we would always use, especially having dietary issues. and coconut oil. Now, getting the coconut oil is, I don't normally buy my coconut oil in big ones. I like using the smaller ones because then I'm not digging deep in trying to get it all out. So just bear with me. So has anyone seen this recipe before, or making plant-based butters previously? Or do you buy, you know, a lot of people go for Nuttelex, and Nuttelex is so harmful to the digestive tract with the oils that it uses within it. Never mind all the nasties that's in there as well. Really cold here, and so normally my coconut oil just like comes out the jar, but like it's so freezing that it's like taking me forever to like cut through and get it out, but that's okay. I think this is the longest bit of the cook. A little bit more. I need a longer spoon. I think that's the problem. Okay. Right, that should be enough. No, just a little bit more. Okay, that will do it. That will do it. Okay, so that's ticking off. And what you'll find on our TM7, it might look different to your Thermomix, or you might not have one, but I love how it shows what ingredients we're having at this particular stage all at once, so we can add it. And then we're going to press blend. Now, I normally double or triple this recipe all at once so that I've got enough to use through the week on spread and also for baking. And if I want it to quickly set, I might stick it in the freezer for a little bit, but you don't want to stick it in there for too long. You literally got to just wait for it to set in the fridge. And if you have a look at my almond milk, it hasn't separated as well. So after we've actually made up the butter, what we're going to now talk about is a condiment that we always use within our cooking. But as soon as we go on a low FODMAP, fructose diet, nightshade, or you've got histamine issues, we generally have to avoid. And getting that we're in the winter months, a lot of casserole, stews, curries, pastas all have this one ingredient, and that is tomatoes. So what we're making is a no tomato sauce, which you can substitute in any dish that you normally have your tomatoes or passata in. All right, so I'm just going to show you. So that is our butter. If you have a look here, looks nice, and I'll put it in and we don't need to change bowls when we make our passata, because obviously, you know, you put a little bit of olive oil in your tomato sauce. So this is like using like equivalent to butter. So you can just keep reusing your bowl without cleaning it. Okay, and I just flatten it down. But you'll see, there's my butter, and it will just go and set. So it's in one of those little IKEA ones, but I normally like to do, as I said, a bigger one in regards to that. So we can get out of that. So here we are doing pantry staples with ingredients we've already got. Not much of the ingredients are used to make it. So it's so more cost effective to do it this way. Just bringing up the next recipe, which is my recipe. So this is a recipe I've actually created myself many years ago when I was kind of doing autoimmune due to my daughter having histamine issues. And generally those diets are very similar, low FODMAP and histamine. And so I made this tomato sauce recipe in there. So it looks a little bit different because it is one that has been created. Hold on. Just going to close that one. Right. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something first, okay? And this is a really important, if not the biggest takeaway, especially for newbies with fructose and low FODMAP. They realize that the first two things you have to avoid is onion and garlic. And if anyone loves food, it's like, to me, it's the flavor. Like, how can you go without? However, there's two ways that you can get around. One is the spice asafoetida. I'll put it in the comments later, but it's an Indian spice. Herby spices do it, and you got to make sure it's a good one. It's not got flowers added to it, because often, especially because it's an Indian spice, it can have like chickpea flour kind of added to, like as if like the arrowroot to kind of keep it stabilized or, you know, preserved. But the Herbies brand will actually be pure, and it tastes like onions, but it's not affiliated with onions, and it is safe to use. You would use very sparingly, and it's quite interesting that a little bit is like more intense than what you would put as a general onion powder. The way that I always did it, and be careful, you know, a lot of people want to go out and buy infused oils. Unfortunately, the quality of your olive oil is one thing to consider. Sometimes they're blended. The other thing too is you don't know the concentration or how much they've infused it. You know, they didn't design those infused oils for people with low FODMAP or fructose sensitivities. So what you're wanting to do is not store, because the longer, it's like anything, when you got leftovers, the more you leave it, the histamines, the more intense the aroma. So I always used to take a little bit of time, and look, I'm just putting this onion in here, and like just like this, and I'm putting this garlic clove in whole. You do not want to chop it. You're wanting to put your oil in. Now, I just realized my recipe is not imported properly, so just gotta go here. Scales. And I am putting 25, whoops, 30, that's fine. And I'm going to leave the bowl open, and I'm going to do some open cooking. You could just do this on 100 degrees if you've got one. And you're wanting to do it for at least 6 minutes, okay? And what I'm going to do is, while that's cooking, I'm lucky I've got 2 bowls. I'm going to put this for 6 minutes on the other one so it can kind of infuse that oil, and then we take it directly out. We do not want to keep any part of that. Now, the benefit of having the TM7 with the open cooking, our blade doesn't turn. So because our open cooking is with no blade turning, it can ensure that none of those fibers or none of that onion is getting into the oil. So all right. So I'm just waiting for that one to go on. So whilst that's sauteing, the last little essential that I want to share with you is my famous hack. And it's using, you could buy already mushroom powder, and you can get some amazing mushroom powders now. But the cheaper and cost-effective way is to buy your sliced shiitake mushroom that have just been air dried. Mushrooms are safe to be able to have. And I'm just going to go in. And what we're making is vegan oyster sauce. Now, I've got to say, this was to me the biggest win, especially because we're gluten-free. And so many, like in the shop, I think there's a oyster sauce that says it's gluten-free and it's blue label. But when you look on the back, it's got other things that actually contain gluten. So you've got to be really careful. Don't just assume that if something says it's gluten-free, that it is gluten-free. And this is what I love, is the fact that I'm not paying that extra money just because it's got gluten-free on the label, and I'm able to make it really cheap. So this is another created recipe that I've done. And what we're going to do first is add, we're going to, before we go into this, I actually want to just mill my shiitake, because I should have done that beforehand. So we only need 10 grams, so it's not really much at all. So I'm going to just put that in. Okay, so got my other lid here. Trying to find my other little cap. I'm going to just blend that. So we want that on speed 10 to really finely blend. Now, again, if I had a really dry bowl, I'd get a very fine powder, but I realized I didn't dry my bowl, but it doesn't matter because it's going to cook down in there. So it would be almost like dust if I had dried my bowl. So I'm going to scrape this down. Go back to the recipe. All right, so now we add our water. Now, I normally like to, because you could substitute this, even though it's like tastes and it gives you that umami flavor, like in vegan oyster sauce. I also use it as a replacement of Worcestershire sauce or something that I'm wanting that intense umaminess of flavor. All right. Got that. Now, this is where we would add our coconut sugar. And I put about 25 in there. If you don't want to use coconut sugar, you can use maple, but coconut sugar and maple are the preferred sweeteners. Okay, and we need some tamari. And it might seem a lot of tamari we use, and we know that tamari is a safe product. However, because we're using in the oyster sauce a bit sparingly in each of the dishes, and that we're not just using it all for one, it makes it more effective. And then a little bit of salt. It's my salt. And then we use some arrowroot. So that's just mixing it all around. And then all we're going to do now is cook off that for 15 minutes. And in that time, I'm just going to go over and actually, I'll put this one over on the other one and bring the other one here. So I'll put a pause on that because the other one's ready. Okay, so I'm going to just get my tongs to get the onion and garlic out of there. And see, we leave this whole, and all it's done is given the flavour, drawn out the flavour, made it safe for us with fructose sensitivities to have. Now, I'm going to cancel this mushroom recipe because we're doing that in the other one now. And we're going to go back. Okay, so I can add all these ingredients in now. So I'm adding in like about 5 carrots. I think I've got too many carrots here, but okay, and 3 beetroot. I can always put this in my cakes. I'm going to not worry about cleaning the lid of the butter. I'm going to go in, go to my manual mode, and I'm going to just chop on about 7. So that was like 3 seconds. Probably overfilled it, but that's good. Chop it again. Got to always remember when you're chopping to do it in 2 lots. It makes for an even chop. Okay. Okay, so we've just like blitzed it all together. We go back to our recipe. I thought I was in my recipe. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add some tamarind. We're going to add some beef broth, and if you go to Neutral Organics, they've got some that is actually low FODMAP, so you can put that in there. Oh, just got to open it. I'll get my jar open. And we're going to add some herbs, so a bit of thyme, a bit of oregano, and a pinch of salt, and a bit of apple cider vinegar. That's the thing, because that's the tamarind and the apple cider vinegar will give it that kind of tang that you traditionally get in tomatoes sauce. So we are wanting 40 grams. So I'm just going to go 5 and we are adding 750. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of the broth concentrate. And you've got to make sure that the beef broth is low FODMAP. You can use the macel if you want, but I prefer not to because I don't like the other additional ingredients in that. And then I'm adding my thyme. And I'm just going to get my Italian herbs because the Italian herbs are safe. And you're seeing exactly how many of the herbs are going in so you can play it safe. And the water. My house is smelling of oyster sauce at the moment. So I'm going to go into scales. More. Still a bit more. Okay. So got that. And salt. Need salt. And the apple cider. Where are we? Now, the beauty is we can really simmer this down in the new TM7 into our open cooking. Or if you want to go way out the kitchen and you just want to let it be, you can put it on for about half an hour. So I'm going to just start using my open cooking and I'm going to crank that up to half an hour. Now, with this, like I said, this is a replacement for your passata, anything with tomatoes. I use it all the time in butter chicken. My kids love it in that. If you're doing a bolognese, it's fantastic. If you're adding to casseroles, to stews, to pasta, it is so versatile. You can even then put it as like with chips and have it as like sauce and chips. It is truly an amazing, and it's more nutritious than the tomato sauces that you get in the shop. So today, you know, we've looked at pantry staples for low FODMAP. We've looked at almonds and how they're normally the plant-based milks have got inulin in them. And that is that prebiotic fiber that is really harmful and can be disruptive for fructose sensitivities. And we're wanting to remove that and make our own. So we make our own almond milk powder and looking at MCT oil as that prebiotic fiber, because the acacia fiber is safe. And then we then made our vegan plant-based butter, and we looked at how when using all different staples, we've already got minimal ingredients, and it's allowing us not to add other harmful things in the packaging, the preservatives, the additives. We don't know what oils or where they're sourced. We know that most plant-based butters, cheeses, and creams, etc., are all done with cashews, which are very unsafe. And obviously, we've got now cooking our vegan oyster sauce, which minimal ingredients, things that you have on hand, and it can be the umami flavor and give those extra boosts to those dishes. And it could be for the vegan oyster sauce for the Asian dishes, or it can be act as a replacement for Worcestershire sauce as well. And then obviously finishing up with our no tomato sauce. So I hope you enjoyed our low FODMAP pantry staples. Like I said, no fuss, really easy to do, and they're things that you will use and rely on very much in our low FODMAP house. And if you know someone who could benefit from this course or this masterclass, please share. Please like our Facebook and our Instagram page to help us get the word out, getting to support other people with their dietary needs. Okay, bye.